Welcome to The Criminologist, the podcast dedicated to educating and entertaining our listeners. We bring you subject matter experts from around the world and share the latest and greatest evidence-based practices and interventions to help individuals desist from a life of crime and delinquency. This podcast avoids stereotypes and biases in favor of the lived experiences of those we can best learn from. Now, please welcome the host of The Criminologist, Joseph Arvidsson.
Hello, and welcome to episode 130 of The Criminologist Podcast. Happy to have you all with us today. One of the many things that I enjoy as to producing this podcast is how much of an opportunity it provides me to grow and maintain my social capital. That is, not only does it provide a vehicle for me to meet new and fascinating individuals from around the world to talk about criminology and corrections, and of course, the topic of desistance from crime, but it also helps me maintain those relationships that I have made along the way on my journey of discovery and growth. Loyal listeners have heard me referencing my recent experiences in Barcelona, teaching at the International Training School on core correctional skills, and also, of course, meeting all sorts of new and interesting connections. But this was actually the second annual training school that Professor Dernescu has hosted. Last year, during our inaugural class, I had the honor and privilege of meeting so many fascinating and energetic and ambitious practitioners as well, including my next guest, Artem Babak. I first had the honor of meeting Artem in the fall of 2021 in Barcelona when he was attending our international training school. Artem has played an integral role in the development of probation services in Ukraine. Allow me to briefly touch on some milestones of his career, ranging from Inspector of Criminal Execution Inspection, Chief Specialist of Probation Department, Chief Specialist of Analysis, Probation Development, and Statistics Unit, Deputy Head of International Cooperation Department, and now Probation Expert with the Norwegian Rule of Law Advisors to Ukraine Mission, or NORLAW. Really an honor for me to be sharing this interview with you. Artem is actually joining us from Norway because of the war in Ukraine. He's going to talk all about that as well. Please enjoy my conversation with Artem Babak, and I will see you all on the other side. Well, hello, my old friend. Welcome to the show, Artem. We are here today, joined by Artem Babak, who I met actually a couple of years back when we were both at the International Training School on core correctional skills in Barcelona. So great to be speaking with you again, my friend. Why don't we start off by you can introduce yourself to our audience. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, educationally, vocationally, and then we'll get up to speed about everything we want to talk about today.
Hi, Joe. First of all, I would like to say thank you for invitation to your podcast. It's a big honor for me. That is a really interesting program. Sometimes I listen to your guests, and that is really interesting material for people who are interested in this sphere. And let me introduce myself. My name is Artem. I'm from Ukraine, from Kiev. Now I'm moved to Norway together with my family. I'm studied in Interregional Academy of Personnel Management in Kiev. I'm a master in law. I started my career in criminal executive service, and exactly in the criminal executive inspections. It's some kind of previous probation service in Ukraine. And step by step, I worked in the different levels as regional department of prison service, Minister of Justice, and central level of the probation service in Ukraine. After that, I worked in the Ukrainian-Norwegian project Norlau, which supported Ukraine in development of justice sector and focused on probation. And it was before war started, and from this summer I also joined to the Development Project Initiatives Agency as NGO in Ukraine, which also supported Ukrainians now. And from the maybe last week I started my practicing in Norwegian Correctional Service. So it's like short my professional period.
Let's circle back in a little bit to your current practice with Norwegian Probation Service. And let's talk about the fact that, and I learned this last year in Barcelona, but many of those countries, particularly in Central and Eastern Europe, are really in the infancy of their probation systems. Some may be even as recent as, for example, the last 20 years. Can you share some of your experience, what that was like, building, creating, being a part of the process, again, of creating a probation system from the ground up, and what that experience was like for you in Ukraine?
Yes, that is a very interesting question, because Ukraine is not alone in this situation. There are a lot of countries which has the same way about this. For example, Baltic countries, Romania, Czech Republic, and others. And but of course, it's very important to know that in our countries we have some kind of legacy from Soviet Union as post-Soviet countries, and Ukrainian probation may be one of the most younger from others. Our probation became to work from 2015, but the first step was in 2002. Second, after the visit of Ukrainian delegation from Ukrainian government to Sweden, but after that were more than 13 years when the law of probation were adopted by parliament. It was really long way, and as I said, in Ukraine we had criminal executive inspection, which were as a body which control people who has sentences not related to imprisonment. But it's of course not probation, because just when people came to units, they just sign something, listen to some information, and maybe has some community works, but that's all. And after the Revolution of Dignity, when probation were established in Ukraine, we of course changed our direction of work. We understand now that there is not just only punishment, and punishment could not change anybody. So it should be like the comprehensive approach with, of course, social work, with probation programs. We develop a lot of interesting and new probation tools as a risk and needs assessment, pre-trial reports, and other. But it was really difficult way, because it was the big battle between the old and new generation of people. Of course, people who were graduated from the military prison academies in Soviet Union, they of course don't want to think something about rehabilitation programs for them. They came here and say that we started to work as prison guards, and now you would like to say that we are social workers. It's not. So it was a big and long battle, and I guess we won this war, but not like just in a minute. And of course we have a lot of things what to do in the future. But the main thing that we changed the vision of people. And I see as a results, our clients is much more prefer to go to probation office than in criminal executive inspection.
Talk a little bit more about that criminal, you just said it, apologies, criminal Thank you. Criminal executive inspection. Because when I've talked to people about the fact that there are those Central and Eastern European countries, many of them, as you said, sort of the legacy of the former Soviet Union, who did not have probation systems, they ask, well, what do they have? Obviously, they had prisons, but it sounds like what you're describing there, that criminal executive inspection was sort of what was used in place without any sort of goals of reintegration or rehabilitation, but more about accountability. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's this service was absolutely focused on the control functions. So, and to understand it more clear, you should know that Correctional Service of Ukraine and other countries in post-Soviet Union, they had legacy from Gulag service. I don't know, do you know about this? But our people know what does it mean, Gulag. Gulag, it was the network of prison labor camps from Ural to Siberia, and there were places where nothing, no one knows about human rights, about the rules, about other things, conditions, requirements, and other. It was really huge system of camps, which is, my opinion, that is worst part of our legacy that we had before.
Yes, the Gulag system, exactly. The massive imprisonment, incarceration, like you said, from Siberia to all corners of the Soviet Union. So part of your challenge, it sounds like, was not only introducing this new rehabilitative system, but as you noted, fighting that culture under the old Soviet Union, even the Gulag culture of punishment and simply punishment. I know we have struggles in the United States with implementing evidence-based practices, core correctional skills, and we fight some of those same cultural battles against folks who got into the profession more from that, I could say, security or law enforcement angle, and those who came in with more of a client-centered and empathetic lens. But again, it sounds like you're really dealing with this against the backdrop of where your system came from under that former Soviet-style Gulag system. Yes.
And I think, of course, we have something in common, but I cannot compare system in the United States and Soviet Union, but we know that the punishment approach is also very popular in the United States, and that is, by the way, one of the interesting things that I heard on the last conference in Oslo, when we have a presentation from Oslo University, which worked together with professors, or maybe also from the scientist field, people from Philadelphia. They together implement very interesting project. I don't remember. I remember how it's called, Scandinavian prison or something like that. Maybe you heard about this, maybe not, but it was really interesting when they trained special unit from the prison. It was maybe 10 or 20 people. They prepared for them practicing in Scandinavian countries, in Norway, in Denmark, in Scandinavia, and these people from United States that of course used to work like in your ordinary prisons with hard rules and your normal approach to prisoners. They came and they just knocked to the door to the prisoner and asked, "Oh, good morning, how are you today?" They have a meal today, all together, playing PlayStation and just discuss their problems and share their news from their weekends and other. And they, of course, were shocked because they see inside the prison that there is knife, weapon. I'm afraid to go to my prison when they have everything like that. But after a few years, when they have all this practicing and they build some part of the prison in Scandinavian style, with separate cells, with the fridge in the cell, with the TV, with some kind of activity inside. I saw the video about this project, and it was really inspiring. And I saw reflections from the prisoners. They were also shocked, but their behavior was changed, and it was really interesting to know about this. And I also would like to participate sometime in the future in the same project, because it was really huge work. And I guess the authors of this section, they were really satisfied. But something the same we had in Ukraine about probation when I worked in the International Cooperation Unit and Center of Probation. We had 5 or 6 or maybe 7 different projects from Canada, from Netherlands, EU, Council of Europe, Norway, of course. And these experts came to us, and they showed new practicing. They tried to pick up the talented persons from probation and teach them, gave them new understanding of a situation, try to show how it works, that it will give you much more big satisfaction from your work than you just really rude with the client, when they just come back to you and say thank you so much, you really helps me in my life, and I'm really appreciated it. So it was something the same when probation officers also see that it works, and that's great. So it's like 2 different stories, but the approach is the same, and I really like it, because if you cannot see how it works, you sometimes you don't trust to this. You think, this knife will be weapon against me.
Yeah, I'm aware of that experience you talked about, where people were shocked that, like you said, knives were allowed in the kitchen in these Scandinavian prison settings. And just it speaks volumes as to that level of trust and the different approach that those institutions are taking. I'm so glad you are being exposed to that really progressive approach. I was fascinated. Talk more about when you said that Ukraine brought in these people from these different systems, from the U.S., sounded like U.S., Canada, maybe Sweden, these 6 or 7 different agencies and jurisdictions. I assume, for example, that you were introduced to the risk, need, responsivity framework. I know you talked about risk need assessments, but what were some of the other schools of thought or approaches that Ukraine was exposed to when they were trying to get their probation system up to speed?
We developed, for example, a risk and needs assessment as a tool, but we use not just only one model. We used, if I don't mistake, Canadian risk and needs assessment for juveniles probation, and on the experience of Great Britain for the adult person. But also we have separate form of risk and needs assessment for pretrial probation, when probation officers conduct the report, and he or she needs to evaluate the risk of this person for the future. Is it needed to have punishment as imprisonment, or this person could be changed in the open society? Also, we use experience from other countries about probation programs. They have, I don't know about now, but a few years ago there were 4 or 5 probation programs for adults, and the same numbers for minors. Also, we develop as like pretrial probation. All these things were really new for us. And one of the tasks that we did not finalize, but I hope for the future, it was electronic monitoring. We use experience from Norway and Baltic countries, and we had study visit to Riga twice. and also to Norway, but we understood that Norwegian model is really expensive for us, and we could start from something which is more close to Ukrainian mentality, economic situation, and also I guess that we have different type of probation clients because our life in our country is quite different. But we created this concept, but during this time we did not adopt the law which opened possibility to implement this reform.
You spoke of those subtle cultural differences that play a role in how we implement these evidence-based practices, these core correctional skills. I noted that you and I both met the year before last in Barcelona at Professor Dernescu's International Training School on Core Correctional Skills. Can you share some of your memories from that experience with our listeners, either the curriculum or the students, or again, any other reflections you have of that awesome experience?
Oh, it was I guess as for me it was the best education in this sphere that I had before. It was a very extensive program, but it was really great that we have opportunity to learn something from very professional trainers from different parts of the world. So it was not just people from Europe. It was interesting to know how it works in other parts of correctional world. And of course, we have a lot of practicing, which is really important for me because before I met a lot of different courses, but it was more theoretically. And in Barcelona, I remember we had the opportunity to record something. After that, to see all together the group work to fix. First of all, to select what is good, what is not, and after that fix it, analyze, discuss. So there were a lot of interesting exercises and combination with study visits to prison in Spain, in Catalonia, and also in Justice City, which is a great place. I guess it's a really interesting approach for other countries because for example, as I remember from my previous work, when people are going in different places and we have a lot of bureaucratic work with this posting and other, and in this case in Barcelona, which is really big city with a lot of big amount of population, they know that if they are going to this place, they have connection to the justice system. So court, probation, police, everything in one building. That is great. And finally, of course, Barcelona is a beautiful place. So for any education, if you combine it with visiting of Barcelona and you meet interesting people and discuss with them how you, not just how you work, but also how you overcome the same challenges as you have in your country, that is great. That is your professional development. You could steal something from this and send to your country and share with your colleagues and friends. And I should say that when the war started and even before, a lot of people that I met in Barcelona, as we have some pool of communication, many people sent me messages with words of support and also even with invitation to their countries to secure my family and me. And I should say that some of them do a lot of important thing for my friends, because I was in Ukraine there, but my friends used these connections and they were in safe environment, live in their homes, and they're not just one or two friends. There were maybe half of all the group. So I was so touched about this, and that is why maybe because we had this strong extensive education together, it was hard, but really interesting. So that is how the friendship is built, I guess.
You mentioned the amazing field trips that we took in Barcelona. It was incredible to go to the prison that we toured. I found it fascinating, among other things, just to see the diversity of inmates in the prison, obviously much more international than at least I'm used to here in the United States. But then also, I was impressed with what they call their City of Justice, which is essentially a compound, for lack of a better term, of buildings ranging from probation service, the courthouse, the prosecutor, but it's uniquely designed in the architecture so that these various different players in the system only get exposed to the players that they have to, in other words. But again, it makes it much easier for the client. It's a much more seamless process, I feel. And of course, you mentioned the connections that we all made, and we all still stay in touch. So that was heartwarming to hear that folks reached out to you after the war broke out. Let's get to that in a second, but I wanted to also get a little bit more about the Norlau project that you referenced. I talked to many probation officers and fellow trainers about experience training internationally. And again, really my experience around core correctional practices. What does that look like or sound like through your lens of implementing those core correctional skills?
Thank you for interesting question, Joe. Norlau, it's a very interesting project, and I worked with them maybe more than 5 years. First, my period was as a probation worker, and also I was representative from probation service. And after that, I became to work together with them. There were 5 very experienced professionals from different place of justice chain, as prison governor, judge, prosecutor, probation officer, and also Ukrainian experts. And we worked all together, and our main goal were support Ukraine in development of new reforms, and we had a lot of different and interesting things and directions, and one of them, as I said, were implementation of electronic monitoring. Also, we built new model probation officers. They were just not only ours, because Ukraine has a lot of new model offices with different approaches from different countries, but some of them were under Norwegian architecture and experience. There were, for example, which is interesting, different separate rooms for communication when the probation officer and prisoners could talk together in good environment, and it's environment of trust, where not as 10 people sitting all together in one room and you could not explain something, or you could not trust and say something which is on your heart. Also, we develop some programs as Women Go IT, which is the special program for women in prison when they have education about IT or some computer skills, which is also was really big step for them, because I saw the photos from these certifications, and these women were crying, and even which were really touched for me, that ambassador from Kingdom of Norway, he came to this, and it was maybe the first time in their life that they feel so big attention from different people and systems. So it was really nice. Also, we established special unit inside the prison in Bila Cerkov, which called Wayback Unit, which is also one of the step between the prison and society. In this place they have special program, also educational part, and work with social workers. By the way, I would like to say that in Norway we developed this system about step by step. They have everything about this. For example, halfway house, which is like maybe you know about this. It's a special units like prison facility, but looks like the ordinary house when they could learn how to pay bills, how to cook, how to do everything, and that is not the big shock when they go through all this system and they don't know how to do anything. So we try to do something in Ukraine, but not so further as a halfway house, but I guess maybe in the future it will be a really good direction of development. Also, we have TOT program, which is program training of trainers. As I said, it's like practicing, like the same as Americans did with their staff. They send them about for education to Norway and Scandinavian countries, and we did a little bit another, but on the same goal. We created the program of education and use a lot of professional trainers around the world, and also we use some trainers from our University of Barcelona, and it was really interesting approach to combine everything, and we pick up 16 people, I guess. Some of them were from Norlau, some of them from prosecution, National School of Judge, prosecution training center, of course probation officers, prison staff, the representative from Central Department of Probation, and we train them and give them, of course, knowledge about probation and chain of justice, but also skills how to train, how to do it in correct way. And unfortunately, we did not finish this because it should be also not just theoretical part, but also a practical part when the students should go around of the country and do their trainings under the supervision of other our professional trainers and have their feedback, etc. And also we plan 2 study visits to Norway and to Croatia, but unfortunately we did not finish it because of war.
I should point out to my listeners, NORLAU stands for, and I may have already said it, Norwegian Rule of Law Advisors to Ukraine Mission. So it sounds like you were really blessed to have these Norwegian benefactors, for lack of a better term, come in and give you some guidance and expertise. But then, as you said, also build capacity by training trainers and allowing you to almost setting up your own academy, if you will, or training school. Is that accurate of what the vision looked like, at least for the future of training Norway probation players and others?
We had really big list of our plans, and unfortunately we did not finalize it. But of course, this, as I said, on the one decade, it were 5 experts from different lines, but they were changeable. So in the first period there were some people, in another play another people, and they share all this experience in different part of justice sector, not just only about probation. We have really nice cooperation with prosecutors. We were involved in the creating of the new criminal code. We established cooperation between prison and probation, because in Ukraine, when we divided this system under responsibility of Minister of Justice, we became to be like not just neighbors, but sometimes even some kind of competition. And it was a problem in the framework of penitentiary probation, when our probation staff, they should go to the prison, work there, but they have a lot of obstacles and misunderstanding between these institutions. So NORLAU covered a lot of issues about this, and we are really lucky to have this project in Ukraine, and I hope that after everything we will have this continuation of this project. But of course they changed the approach about education of the prison and probation staff, and also we had a really great opportunity to create separate unit inside the central level of probation, which should be responsible for training works. So they should use all these people that we trained and coordinate their work around of the Ukraine. And of course it could not be perfect in the first step, but in the future, when you train them and also have opportunity to provide some education online through Zoom, it could give, of course, big results. because our educational system is not perfect, of course.
I love the approach that Norlau takes, and you corrected me by saying we're not just training probation officers. You're including, for example, prosecutors and judges and other criminal justice professionals and stakeholders. I often joke rather cynically that it really wouldn't matter if I, as a trainer, were able to train up all of an agency's probation officers on core correctional skills. I shouldn't say it wouldn't matter, but the effects are somewhat muted if the other players in the system, such as the judges, the prosecutors, the treatment providers, aren't on the same page with us and don't have the same vision. Again, it sounds like Norlau and the approach that you're taking in Ukraine, however, really took that into account.
That is, by the way, the main punchline of Norwegian approach, because they use this definition as holistic approach when they use everyone in this system, and it's not just only about Ukraine, but for us it was extremely important, because if we changed the vision of probation officer, but all other actors of these actions, they have their previous vision, so nothing changed. So for example, judge should understand why he requests pretrial probation, and sometimes they, in the beginning of this process, they were not interested about this. So we created round tables, invited their leadership, management, judges, and explained what does it mean. And now they use this instrument because they understand that that is important for them, not for probation, for them. And the same about the prosecutors. With prosecution, we have a little bit more difficult situation, because they have also functions of supervision. I don't know about United States, but in Ukraine they inspect probation and also prisons, and in the same time they are representative of the state in the court. So, and sometimes it's a misunderstanding between them, because I should go there and check them and to be like a big boss, and in the same time we should cooperate. So we try to change this approach, and also give a lot of proposals to the amendments of law that to change these functions of prosecution, because we think that is one of the main obstacle for normal development of law enforcement system. And by the way, for example, what we know about Norwegian system, they don't have any supervision about this, and a lot of other countries. But in Norway, in one way that you could what you could complain, for example, if you feel that your rights were breached, is to write to their leadership. And the trust in this country is so on the high level that no one don't use this, in their private interest. They know if in the future they will be catched about this, and they breached their trust, and they lost more that they could use now if they try to lie to the system. So, and I think that it's not just because it's Norway. It could be in different countries, but we should know how it works and what is the benefits for, of course, for all of us. It's not just society, but also for the state authority. It's important because it creates much more soft environment for work.
I love when you use that term when you said Norway takes more of a holistic approach. The irony is when I talk about encouraging folks to take a holistic approach, it's within the context of assessing their client holistically. But I love Norway took it up a level and said, no, we're going to assess the entire system holistically. Maybe someday, Artem, you can come to the United States and train our judges and prosecutors on what you've learned, because that really is the next frontier for us, is to start education and training around what we're up to with all of the other stakeholders, so that, as you noted, not just the client, the workers, but the community and society at large benefit from that enlightened approach, if you will. Let's change gears a little bit, Artem, if you don't mind. Talk about the war in Ukraine, how that turned your life upside down, and then highlighting that journey which now has brought you to Norway.
Of course, it's a difficult question, but I would like to share some of my feelings, because I think it's important for the world to know that we are under attack of our neighbors, of Russians, and I never thought that I could wake up in the morning and understand the time in my school books when we learned something about Second World War, when Kiev were under bombing. And of course it was worst day maybe in our lives, because we understood that these things happens, and you could not change it. Before maybe 5 days, we were together with my wife in the concert in Kiev for Notre Dame de Paris, and we got the message that we will have a baby. And after 5 days, we understand the situation now, how it is, that is not just little war, it's a big war with bombing, with rockets. And I remember all this mess. And my daughter, she has birthday in 25th of February, so after 1 day, and we planned big celebration for her, because in previous years we had these COVID restrictions and we did not have possibility to do her birthday. She waited for it for a long time, and we organized everything in the big city mall, big city center. And on the second day, when I understood that the battle is really close to our home, because we live close to Kiev, it's not far from Hostomel airport, and we understood that shooting and airplanes and everything is close to our home, in the morning we decided to go. So we woke up here, and I tried to explain to her that there is a war, and she's 5 years old, and it's really difficult task to find the right words about this, because before she's asked that, oh, why you are so hurry, we are going to my birthday to celebrate everything. And it was really disaster for me as a father. I could not change everything, but now my family is in danger. And after, I guess, 1 month, this city mall was destroyed by the rocket. So nothing there, is just fire and black structure of the building. So we first a few months we were in Kiev region. We went to our friends. After that, we understood that situation is more worse. We went to also very good friend of my family. He is also probation officer. We live there in the central part of Ukraine, and try to cope within our team, and try to support Ukrainian army as much as we can. All of us try to coordinate the network of saving the families who could go abroad. And I would like to say one more time, people who helps us from different probation services in different countries, they are really heroes. I know that they do huge work, sometimes even dangerous work to save our families. And when I understood that Russians attacked Ukraine also from the south, it was really close to our home, so we moved to western part of Ukraine, and I sent my family to Czech Republic and go to the military camp, because it was according to the law. I had my duty to go to this, and I had some problem with health, so I was in the during this selection I were in the hospital, and they check everything, and I had also problem because of all this long trip. There were big stress and also overloading to my body, and also there's some legislation were changed, and according to my health and also situation that my mother she has also problem with health, I got permission to postpone my military service, and also I got the permission to go abroad. So, and we agreed inside of my family that I should care about my family, my daughter, my pregnant wife, and also about my mother. And my father, he works in Ukraine still, and state authority, so we just divide our responsibility and try to do everything for victory of Ukraine. So, and of course it's we could not plan about our future, now it's impossible, but I dream about our victory, and also the main dream to save Ukraine, and I think that of course we have big support from a lot of countries, but we don't need foreigner soldiers. We have a lot of people who are ready to protect our land with the weapon in their hands. But we need weapon. We need weapon and bullets, and it's not enough. I understand that there are a lot of people who think that we have a lot of weapon, and it's maybe just take the fire in the everything, but it's not. If we will stop the fight, we will not exist. If they will stop this, everything will be end. So, and there are a lot of opinion now in society. I know that people have the theses and definitions that we should give the territory to Russians now and to have communication because they have nuclear weapon. But I read a very interesting thing on Facebook, and I really like it. I would like to, am I right, remember this, that it looks like that if you have nuclear weapon, it's the main and the best tool in diplomacy. Everyone who has the nuclear weapon could change the borders of any countries, and so, but it's not honest. And when they say that we should give them this territory, Crimea, for example, or Donetsk, Lugansk, and Kherson, or other regions, they mean that we give the right to Russians to kill, to murder, rape, and starve our citizens. So it's not honest. And they say that we could not be in NATO or other alliance about defense because the Russians don't like this, but it means that just rich and developed countries has the rights to be to have protection or to live in safe environment, but it's also not honest. So I know that there are huge support from different countries and people who are living there of Ukraine, and that is one of the biggest reason why their government support us. So I would like to say everyone who listen to us today that your support is very, very important. We pay very big price, but we are ready to do it, but we need the tools for this. So thank you, Joe, that give some time and opportunity to share this with you and people.
Yeah, of course. It's my pleasure, Artem. That is an amazing story of courage and resiliency, and it just really speaks volumes as to your character. I really appreciate that. Now, as noted, you're in Norway, and was that decision based on some of your work with Norlau, or how did that come about that you ended up in Norway, rather? I was just curious, was the decision to go to Norway based on your connections with the Norlau project?
Yes. It was a decision to go in a country where I have friends. So I were invited to my best friend from Norway, and he works in the correctional service of Norway, and I try to be close to the location where he lived and worked. Of course, it's impossible to influence about this in Norway, because when you are going to this system, government and special department of migration service decided where you will live, but it's very important to this decision which could influence about this. That is a place which is ready to invite you for practicing or for the future work. So I have connection to the correctional service of Norway, because Norway project, they were the main implementers of our project. So I had the contract directly with them. So they know me, they know my professional skills, and they agreed to get me on board about this. But of course, it's not enough to be just a skilled person. I should learn Norwegian, and I do my best to learn. That is really important, and in any country you could not work if you don't know their language.
So what does a day in your life look like now, Artem? I know you said you're practicing learning some of the Norwegian probation system, but what does a typical day look like for you now?
Now in our integration program, that is the model that you have few days of your practicing. So for me, it will be like the daily job in probation or in the prison, and also 3 days of language courses. So from the morning up to the it's not evening, but 2:30. By the 2:30, like in the university, with short breaks, you have education in Norwegian language, which is quite extensive, because when you have a work, you have different type of your activities, and you could change it. But in the university, you just sit and learn and write, and everything is like very, very extensive about this. So it's I guess it's really close to job.
And I know this may be difficult to answer because a lot of this has to do with what's going on back home in Ukraine, but what does the future hold for Artem Babak?
As I said, it's difficult to plan something more than for 1 week, and of course now I have also some changing in my life. Our family will increase, but my goals, like short-term goals, is to learn Norwegian, to understand the system inside, to learn more about correctional work, and I would like to start my work in this sphere in Norway. So that is like short-term plans. What will be in the future, I don't know. It depends on a lot of things that I could not control. But one thing that I cannot plan, but I really want, that the war in Ukraine should be stopped, and we should protect our borders.
Could not agree more, my friend. Could not agree more. Artem, I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on the show and share your experiences with us, and I hope you'll be back in the future to give us all some great updates.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was very interesting conversation, and I hope that in the future we will have more information that we could share with each other.
All right. Until then, my friend. Until then. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A huge Criminologist podcast. Thank you to Artem Babak for joining us all the way from Norway to get us up to speed on what is going on with the war in Ukraine. We wish the best for Artem and his family and for everybody in Ukraine struggling because of the current invasion. To that end, I asked Artem if there were any resources that he would like me to pass on to you and promote, and he did provide me with the website for an NGO, non-governmental organization, entitled Developing Project Initiative Agency, DPI. They are currently working in Ukraine for psychological help, providing social support, development of professionals, the protection of human rights of vulnerable groups, and maintaining local communities. I'm going to leave the web link for the DPI agency in the episode description of this program. So if you want to check that out and contribute, give support, please feel free to do so. We will be back next week with a fresh episode. In the meantime, you may contact the show or reach out to us through our website, theparagongroup.llc.com, for training or presentations as to core correctional skills, implementation, program design, or of course, the topic of desistance from crime. If you have questions or comments as to this podcast, feel free to contact the show via our email at thecriminologistpodcast@gmail.com. That's thecriminologistpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to follow us through our Facebook and Instagram pages at The Criminologist Podcast. New fun images are being added all the time to those feeds. You don't want to miss out. The Criminologist Media Group is also on Twitter. Give us a follow at Crim Media Group. That's CRIM Media Group. You may also connect with me, Joseph Arvidsson, or Artem Babak on LinkedIn, and follow both the Criminologist Podcast and the Paragon Group on our LinkedIn pages. Lastly, if you've not already done so, check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Criminologist, for additional content as to the themes of this program. Hey, merchandise is available if you visit the Paragon Group LLC.com. Look for the tab entitled Shop, and you can get information on securing your own criminologist coffee mug, refrigerator magnet, or pen for the home or office. And if you believe what we're doing on the show, if you're part of the movement, please spread the word, tell a friend or a coworker or a colleague about us, ask them to subscribe to the podcast, and of course, do so yourself if you've not already done so. And always remember, folks, there's no them, there's only us.
It's important for the world to know that we are under attack of our neighbors, of Russians, and I never thought that I could wake up in the morning and understand the time in my school books when we learned something about Second World War when Kiev were under bombing.
The Criminologist Podcast is a production of the Paragon Group, LLC. For speaking engagements, interviews, program design, or training opportunities, please visit us at theparagongroup.llc.com. If you enjoyed the show, you can find more content and videos on our YouTube channel, The Criminologist. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Both the Criminologist Podcast and the Criminologist channel are brought to you by the Criminologist Media Group. Be sure to give us a 5-star review, and thanks for listening.